Hey guys, it's the Nerdy Movie Guy. So today I'm going to continue talking about Planet of the Apes, and we're going to mention Dawn of the Planet of the Apes today. So we're going to dive into this movie. This one is, it's hard to tell whether or not this or War are my favorite in this trilogy. There's just so much uniqueness about each of these movies that it's hard for me to separate. But when this movie came out, it was one of my favorites. It probably was my favorite movie of all time when it released. Now, that was me as a teenager. I haven't seen very many movies. There was a lot of recency to it. But rewatching it recently, I think it still holds a top slot contender. It's a contender for one of my favorite movies, and I can't wait to explain why. So, before I even mention the movie, the trailer, when this trailer came out, I'm one of those few people that maybe care about the trailer when you compare trailers. But to me, this movie had one of the best trailers I've ever seen. There was just intensity, dread, hype, emotions, and feelings that you got from the trailer alone before even going to the theater to see this thing. And it's rare that a movie can do that. And that's what Matt Reeves has done. He did Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. He did War of the Planet of the Apes, and he also directed the Batman. So Matt Reeves we trust. So when he has a new movie, I'm going to see it. So for this movie, the first thing I want to mention is just the opening. The opening alone gives us the sense of how this movie is going to go. You get a feel for the tone and the intensity and the seriousness to these characters and to these roles. Just in the opening 5 minutes, you see the dedication to the role that these actors put into it. You see the dedication to the story and the character building, with everything going on. And one of the small things that I noticed that was really cool for me is in Rise of the Planet of the Apes, take Rocket. He's essentially, at the sanctuary, he's essentially the school bully, what he is. And, they escape from the sanctuary, and Rocket doesn't really do a whole lot after that. He's there, he's present, but he doesn't really get any, moments of his own after that, if you will. But in Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, you get to see his character progression from just this bully to he's one of Caesar's most loyal followers, and that was really cool. And now he's got a son in this movie. You just keep adding layers to this character that was just... I thought he was going to die in Rise of the Planet of the Apes. I didn't expect him to survive, but that's the kind of attention to the detailed character development that I can appreciate. Is taking a character, and let's make him something different, like Rocket. He was a bully. Now let's make him extremely likable and sort of a hero in this movie. So that was really cool. And Maurice, in Rise, he mentions how he was a circus orangutan. So he probably didn't see the good side of humans, but, for Caesar's sake, he believes they can be good. So, for Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, there's all these character development. There's so many new characters. And we take Koba, and he, like I mentioned in my review for Rise, Koba is the villain of the trilogy. That's just how I see it. And in Dawn, obviously, he gets a lot more screen time. And, God, Toby Kebbell did such a phenomenal job playing Koba. He was one of the scariest villains, just probably still for me. It was just the lengths he'll go to in the name of, protecting his species. It's just, I just applaud whoever writing the story for Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, because it was just one of the best stories I've seen. And so I wanted to talk about the movie. I keep getting sidetracked because I love this thing so much. We move on to the plot, and we realize that the simian flu, as the humans are calling it, is sort of weeding out humans, and we know it's going to connect to the originals. We know they're not all going to die off, but we now know, we get a sense that there's enough humans that apes can take over now, and that's sort of where this movie is pushing. And of course, you have Caesar. He's this character, he doesn't want war, and that's just blatantly obvious. He was never going to be that kind of character. He's never going to go to war against the humans. But Koba wants war, and that's just his character, and that's just his purpose for this movie. And we get to see sort of a different side of the human and ape connection in this movie franchise. And, he connects with this human, and it's a neat chemistry between the characters, between, these main groups of people and the apes. It's really cool to see And one of the things that just hits you in the gut watching this thing is the further along you get in the movie, you just know Koba's just going to screw people over. And that's exactly what he does. You know, he finally finds out that the humans are, they have all these weapons and enough to wipe out the apes. And so Koba wants to go back to tell Caesar, to warn him. Because that's what Koba, you know, he is loyal to Caesar. He is. For the first half of the movie, he's loyal to Caesar. And he just kind of backs out from it. They get into a fight, and his mentality switches to protecting apes, not just Caesar anymore. So we move to the biggest cliffhanger, or not cliffhanger, the biggest plot twist that, as a kid, I didn't see coming, is Koba shoots Caesar and leaves him for dead. And not only that, it keeps getting worse. I just remember sitting in the theater going, just freaking out over how scary Koba was. First, he shoots Caesar. And if that wasn't bad enough, he burns their home. And if that wasn't bad enough, now he's raging war. And if that wasn't bad enough, he gives a whole speech to Blue Eyes, Caesar's son, about how they're going to avenge his father together. And he's using Blue Eyes. And now he's leading the apes to war. A war that they didn't want, a war they didn't need, and a war that could have so easily been prevented if not for Koba. So his character development just remains, in my opinion, one of the best developed stories that I've seen in a character like his. You know, the sort of anti-hero role for a character. And so to move past that, we get to finally see how Caesar's recognizing how things are. You know, in Rise, he just wanted to escape. In Dawn, he just wants peace. But now in the second half of the movie, he's realizing he can't have it one or the other. He realizes he's going to have to sacrifice a lot for the sake of the apes. And, you know, he goes back to his old home in the city. While he's recovering, you see, you know, video of him as a child, essentially. And you just keep getting more and more you feeling connected to his character. And you realize just how used Caesar really was throughout the whole thing. And that's the brilliance I see in these movies, is the apes rule the earth in the end. We all know that, because most people, I feel, have seen the originals if they're going to tune into this trilogy. However, this movie, or this trilogy as a whole, didn't paint them to be just these villains who just took over because they're savages. You know, they were both used. The humans were used, the apes were used, and it was just a game of survival. And it turns into not a war to just rule the earth. It turns into a game of survival. And that's what I find fascinating, is this trilogy kind of twists the impression you get from the originals, and you now, watching the originals, you assume the apes just had a war and they took over, but that's not really how it happened. And so I love this take, the spin on that idea, and just give this concept, this idea, more life, and give it a story. And that's what Dawn did. In the end, obviously, as you know, if you've seen this movie, Koba and Caesar go head to head, and they have practically a death match. And that's just how it has to be. And Koba's he started this war. You know, he has already caused the sickness for the humans. Now he's already started this war. And because he went to war with the humans, now we realize the humans have called the military for backup to come wipe out the rest of the apes. So Koba has essentially doomed his species, so to speak, or at least as far as we know, watching Dawn, that's the dread you feel going into the final scenes of this movie, is he has created just this war where there's peace isn't an option anymore. It's just gone, and it's all because of him. And after everything he's done, you know, killing Ash, killing Rocket's son, using Blue Eyes, and just, you know, making a lot of the apes prisoner, the ones who are loyal to Caesar. He just has so many elements as a villain that I think cements him as the main villain for this trilogy, as I see it. But as we go to the end, we realize we kind of get this somber closure to this part of the story. Is, Apes were following Caesar, then they followed Koba. And now we realize they're all ready to follow Caesar. They realize what Koba did because he tried to kill Caesar. And they didn't realize that. They just thought, humans killed Caesar and it's time to go to war. So once they realize what happened, their loyalty immediately switches to being loyal to Caesar. And we sort of go into the final shot of this movie realizing there's going to be all-out war. And then you realize, because I watched this one in the theater. I didn't see Rise in theaters, but I saw Dawn in theaters. And I remember sitting in theater going, there is going to be a bloodbath in the next one. And, well, I won't spoil it for you guys yet. But yeah, this movie really cements itself as one of my favorites. And that is why I'm so passionate about this movie, is not only do we get to see Caesar's growth with his speech, with his story, with his love for humans, with his love for apes. You just have to appreciate Andy Serkis's performance as Caesar. It's just, he has so many triumphant roles. It's hard to pick just one. His performance as Caesar might be one of my favorites, just given the dedication he gives to this role. And there are emotional sides to his character in this movie. And, he played King Kong 2005, and it's an emotional story, but it's not original because it's just, it's been done before. And then he performs as Gollum. Gollum, don't get me wrong, is an amazing performance. But there's not really a lot of emotion with Gollum. So he just kind of brings a new side to his acting and his effort put into Caesar. So that's just something that I just can't help but appreciate. So all in all, this movie might be one of my favorites of all time. War was extremely well done. I can't wait to review it. Is one of my favorites as well. So all in all, this movie was an 11 out of 10 for me. And thank you guys so much for taking the time to watch this.